Since the beginning of the AIDS crisis, activism has been crucial to progress. In fact, it was our only weapon in the early days of the epidemic, and there have been many worthy targets for our anger and our protests. Governmental inaction, homophobia, the glacial pace of research. But nothing has been as reviled as the pharmaceutical industry, the profit-making arm of the AIDS epidemic. Treatment activists have been at odds with Big Pharma since the very beginning. But what is that relationship like today? What happens now when HIV treatment advocates sit down with community managers from a pharmaceutical company? Fireworks? Kumbaya? I happen to know, and you are about to find out.
We all have the same condition. It's called life. I'm living mine as a gay man and an addict in recovery who's dealing with aging and being a friend and finding happiness and staying healthy and having fun and enjoying laughter, all while living with HIV for more than 25 years. I'm Mark S. King, and this is my fabulous disease.
A few weeks ago, I received an invitation from Janssen Therapeutics, formerly known as Tebotech, to participate in a community advisory board in Philadelphia. Now, these community advisory boards, also known as CABs, are meetings in which pharmaceutical representatives get together with AIDS community leaders, either advocates or treatment activists, to discuss either the progress of a clinical trial for a new drug, or maybe their marketing plans, or educational programs they're doing to the HIV community. Now, I remember the old days. In the old days, we used to take red paint to such meetings. I remember spraying red paint on Burroughs Welcome, when was it, 1985, 1987, because of the high cost of AZT. Well, I didn't think my red paint was going to make it through security, and it seemed a little old-fashioned. And besides, they were very nice, and it seemed like a good opportunity to find out behind the scenes what happens in meetings such as this. The fact is that they were going to pay my expenses and pay me $500. Now, I have agreed not to talk specifically about what happened in the meeting, but I can tell you this. The Westin Philadelphia is a really nice hotel, and they have fantastic food. We had food right there in the room, and I got to tell you, I must have gone back to the breakfast bar at least 3 times. The people participating in this meeting included those from Janssen Therapeutics, of course. They have 3 HIV medications on the market now, by the way, as well as a variety of people who are representing various AIDS service organizations and concerns, advocates. And I talked to them because I really wanted to know how they felt about meetings like this and what they got out of it.
Meetings like this are important to continue to enlighten and push the pharmaceutical companies to continue to focus on the patient.
I remember probably in the early 90s when pharmaceuticals was only talking to doctors, and we wanted, as consumers, wanted to have this conversation as well with pharma. It wasn't allowed. Now it is allowed, and I sit at the table because of the obligation. I asked for this. They hear us. They partner with us.
I like to come to these kinds of meetings because I like to see what the companies are doing, get the information. The data is really always interesting to see their different marketing campaigns and to provide input on the different initiatives that they're working on and the different things they're doing to promote access, around the country and around the globe.
Okay, that sounds good, but we are going to spray them, right? I mean, at some point we're going to spray.
Certainly over the years, the pharmaceutical companies have stepped up. They are responsive.
One of the most powerful things is to be able to say something, to recommend something, and then you come back and you see that they actually heard you. And not only they heard you, they implemented this piece or they added this piece.
Our job is to take them to task when we feel like they could be more stepping up to the plate. And to kind of keep tabs on maybe the work that they're doing. And I think, they really find that valuable.
Chalk outlines. At some point we have a die-in and we all lay down and we do chalk outlines around each other. How about that?
We have a term called sleeping with the enemy, whether it's the government or the industry. And what I think I've learned that I've slept with some folks the enemy and like friends. Sometimes I've also learned you keep your worst enemies close to you. When I started this, the industry was an enemy. But what I've learned that we've learned from each other together, and being at the table, I've been able to change my mindset about them by learning from them, and they've been able to change their mindset about me and other consumers.
If you focus too much on, people criticizing you for being in bed with pharmaceutical companies, the truth is, then what's the other part of that? Well, you have to make change by talking with folks.
You're not always going to be their best friend, but you're certainly going to be a valuable resource and asset to help get them and us to where we both want to be.
This has been the history of Tevotech, used to be Tevotech, now Janssen Therapeutics, in terms of getting the community's input. So we get the community's input on trials, we get the community's input on pieces that we create, because we understand that those are the people that are on the ground, and they know how to reach those people that are HIV positive, and be so that it's effective in terms of that we have tools and things that really people can benefit from.
Oh, well. Sounds very reasonable. Let's look at a program like the AIDS Drug Assistance Program. I mean, here you have a governmental program in which there are thousands of people on a waiting list, right? Well, it's not as if the pharmaceutical industry hasn't pitched in. Janssen Therapeutics alone has worked with the ADAP Crisis Task Force since launching their first HIV medication in 2004. They've been an active member in the HIV Fair Pricing Coalition, and they've received high marks on things like pricing and access. Their own Patients Assistance Program has welcomed tons of new patients since the ADAP crisis began. And let's not forget that pharmaceutical rebates account for around 1/3 of the current ADAP budget. Okay, now it sounds like I'm totally singing their praises, doesn't it? It sounds like I'm totally on board, I'm a big fan of the community work of the pharmaceutical industry, or maybe I sold out for $500. Oh, by the way, here's how I spent the $500 that I got from Janssen Therapeutics. I started with $320 that cost me for a rental car because I drove from Philly to go visit some friends that lived there in the area. $100 I spent paying my web designer. This is the first month that it hasn't cost me money to have a blog. $50 went to my Best Buy credit card because I can't stop buying little toys for my blog. And then finally $9 it cost me to have Popeyes at the airport in Philly. I love me some Popeyes. Do you know that I sang and danced in a Popeyes commercial when I was 18? No, really, I did.
Popeyes has your chicken that's tender and fresh.
Told ya. So that's $479. The remaining $21, don't know what I'll do with it. I mean, I'll go nuts, I'm sure. The fact is that I don't feel indebted to Janssen Therapeutics. I mean, I contributed at their meeting. I had a lot to say. They got their money's worth. And I haven't stopped being an advocate just because that's over. I mean, the fact is when you really think about it, I would like to know who benefited most from that meeting. Was it the advocates or was it Janssen Therapeutics? Who benefited from that meeting? Let's take another look at the ADAP program, for instance, the AIDS Drug Assistance Program, where all these people are on waiting lists, waiting for the government to buy their medications. Now here you have a program where the government is paying the pharmaceuticals for meds to give to people with AIDS. So if that money is running out, of course we've got lobbyists and help and all sorts of people up on Capitol Hill helping us advocate to get ADAP fully funded. Of course we do. And it's in the pharmaceuticals' interests that we concentrate on ADAP, on that program, on that struggle, on that crisis, rather than looking at a larger picture, a bigger picture, looking at, for instance, drug pricing, generics, the idea that this crisis could be solved with drug pricing. Don't want to go there. We want to keep the advocates busy with their busy work. And that busy work includes concentrating on the ADAP crisis. Now, I think the ADAP program is wonderful. I think it's also very expensive. It's $12,000 per patient per year. That is money that goes directly to the pharmaceutical companies. That's just a fact. Now, I think it's a great program, but isn't it a shame that we live in a country with our healthcare system structured in such a way that we have to go fight for our little piece of the pie. And we're not the only interest group doing it. The elderly have to fight for a piece. Child advocates have to fight for a piece of the pie. And as a result, we get this program that gives AIDS drugs to people with AIDS who can't afford it. Do you think there's any other disease that does that, by the way? Do you think that for cancer or, I don't know, diabetes, if you can't afford your drugs, there's some governmental program that'll pay for your drugs? No. No, we got that. We as AIDS advocates got that. We got that because we had loud voices. We got that because we have the red paint. That's why we got that. And although I'm proud of the fact that we got that, isn't it a shame that we have a healthcare system in which we're all fighting for those little pieces, where we got something for ourselves, you know? And the sad truth is that whenever you have little constituencies grabbing their little pieces, and because we have loud voices, we can get ours, then you push the truly disenfranchised, the true people who have no voice, no red paint, no advocates, no lobbyists. Those people get pushed further and further away. Now, that's a disgrace. That is something to protest about. As always, thanks for watching, and please be well.